Sure, there's two ways in my book I suggest. One is to prune this weed back, and the other is to pull it out by the root. I'm more of a pull it out by the root guy. And here's why. These human rights commissions may have been a noble idea 40 or 50 years ago, but they are completely redundant to real laws. For example, if someone is fired because they're black, in employment law, which is centuries old and predates these counterfeit human rights laws, in employment law, to fire someone without cause, you have to pay them money. And firing someone because they're black is not considered cause in our law. So if you fire someone because they're black, they're going to get money from you. And in our employment law, the manner in which you fire someone, if you're rude or mean about it, you actually have to pay them more. So if you fire someone in a racist huff, you're in great jeopardy in the real courts, overseen by a real judge with real rules of procedure and all the other checks and balances of our legal system. So that covers employment. Landlord and tenant law, as people here I'm sure know, is so tremendously biased towards the tenant, and there's so many free legal resources for someone who would be kicked out of an apartment, let's say, in the dead of winter, that there are already mechanisms to help them. By the way, a Human Rights Commission in Alberta takes over 400 days to process the average case. If you're kicked out of an apartment in the dead of winter, you'll get your help the following spring through a Human Rights Commission. So it's not exactly helpful to anyone other than those lawyers and bureaucrats who have something to chew on for 450 days. So the actual things that this was designed to help are being dealt with elsewhere. This has become a make-work project for busybodies, and I regret that if it's merely pruned back, like fingernails, it will grow again, and we'll have to prune it back in another 10 years. So I say weed it out. A quick anecdote from Southwest Marine Drive, McDonald's had an employee named Bina Dat. Bina Dat worked at McDonald's for less than $10 an hour. Bina Dat had to follow McDonald's rules about hand washing. I've read those rules. They're 2 pages long. Touch a door handle, wash your hands. Shake someone's hand, wash your hands. Open the freezer, wash your hands. Touch money, wash your hands. Go to the bathroom, wash your hands, etc. They even have an hourly chime. It's the hand washing chime. They have a slogan, time to lean, time to clean. They are clean freaks at McDonald's, thank goodness. But Bina Dat one day said to her boss, I can't wash my hands so often. They hurt. My hands are chapped. Okay. McDonald's put her on long-term disability for more than a year, while they sent her to every expert in town. Allergists, dermatologists, they tried ointments and creams, but nothing could work on Bina Dat's hands. And so after over a year and a half, Bina Dat was given the bad news that her life of lounging around at McDonald's expense would come to an end. They would pay her severance, but she would have to find a job where hand washing was not required. They gave her severance, and frankly, they had paid her for probably a year and a half too long. Well, what would she do? What would you do? Well, she went to the BC Human Rights Commission because her human right has been violated, her human right not to have to wash her hands after going to the bathroom. And McDonald's discriminated against her on the basis of disability. No one quite knows the name of that disability, but don't be a bigot. And McDonald's was ordered to pay her $50,000. Tax-free, by the way, which is nice for a burger flipper. But that's not the worst of it. Oh, it's only McDonald's. It's only 50 grand. No. They were also ordered never to impose their hand-washing rules again on anyone with Bina Dat's amorphous ailments. And not just on Bina Dat, but anyone in the future. They were barred by law from doing so. To hell with the food and safety regulations. Who made this ruling? Was it a doctor? Was it an epidemiologist? Was it someone with experience in the food service industry? No. It was Judy Parrick, a divorce lawyer and a radical Marxist activist in town, who in her ruling actually said, quote, there is no evidentiary link between frequency of hand washing and public health. Oh, really? Remind me not to have dinner at Judy Parrick's house, okay? And so I put it back to you. Section 13, is it a problem? Well, yes. Section 13 is a problem for loudmouths. Section 13 is a problem for provocateurs and people who have important things on important subjects that are controversial to say. So 99% of Canadians will never be touched by Section 13 because 99% of Canadians are severely normal people who go about their lives and don't publish Danish cartoons. But Section 13 is likely to expose a person to hatred or contempt by means of publication. So that's not going to affect most people in this room. But these other sections, I mean, McDonald's wasn't looking for trouble. McDonald's didn't do anything provocative. McDonald's was doing something quite normal. In fact, if McDonald's didn't do it, it would be in the violation of the law. And that's my point, is the other 98% of the work that the Human Rights Commission does is not political, but it's just as bad. It's a shakedown. And I've got more anecdotes in the book, and maybe the questions will pull them out of me. I remember when I was called downtown to the interrogation by Shirley McGovern, the human rights officer. That's what her business card said, Governor of Alberta, human rights officer. It was Friday. She was dressed casual Fridays. Had a little checklist, was reading through it. Couldn't have been more bored. Her first thing was, she said, not quoting verbatim, but paraphrasing, whenever I do this interview, I always like to ask the respondent, that's what they call the target, I always like to ask the respondent about their intentions. Oh, whenever you do this, eh? This is how you always start things off. You got this down to a routine now. This woman was as casual as chatting about the sports scores or the weather. To her, this was normal. It was something she had done so often she now had a routine. Asking private citizens on pain of all sorts of searches and seizures to come downtown and answer questions about their personal views, their intentions, their thoughts about religion and politics and publications. This was normal for her. Now, I laced into her for 90 minutes, and you probably saw the YouTube clip. But even after that, she wanted to make small talk and chat and joke. I could not believe it. She thought what she was doing was normal. She thought what she was doing was normal. And I'm sure that when she went to cocktail parties, what do? I'm a human rights officer. And I'm sure she had no embarrassment over it. Well, when those YouTube videos went up, over 100,000 people watched them that first weekend. It was the fifth most watched video on all the internet, according to YouTube. Oh, she got a few emails. She got a few emails and a few phone calls. Within 10 days, Shirley McGovern quit my file. I feel no compunction, because it ought not to be normal to be a censor. It ought not to be normal for a government agent to summon someone and say, answer for what you wrote. By the way, I have told the reasons for why I published those cartoons 8,000 times. I told you today. I love talking about it. But when the government says, come down and answer for it, you must not give the same answer, because it's not a friendly chat then. It's an interrogation. And if you can refrain from swearing, the only thing you must say is, it's my bloody right to do so. I do not have to explain my rationale, other than it's my bloody right to do so. It was very hard not to swear. I call it denormalization, because for 30-odd years it has been normal for people to say, I'm a human rights officer. They don't use the word censor. They're more Orwellian than that. But I want it to be abnormal, to be un-Canadian. And I want it to get to the point where people say, you, madam, are a threat to civil liberties, not a defender of them.